Discover the amazing moment a single dad transformed the life of a paralyzed CEO's daughter. Jake gripped the steering wheel of his aging truck, knuckles white, as he navigated the familiar streets of his quaint Midwestern town. Each mile was a reminder of the daily grind he faced, labored muscles aching from a full day's work at the construction site. He barely noticed the towering corporate building that glimmered in the late afternoon sun, its surface reflecting the wealth that seemed worlds apart from his life. His mind swirled, wrestling with thoughts of overdue bills and the demands of his two lively kids, fueling a gnawing sense of inadequacy. Was he doing enough? Could he truly give them the brighter future he dreamed of? As the weight of his worries coiled tighter in his chest, he felt the thrill of possibility slip further from his grasp. Suddenly, the familiar world faded away as a more urgent cry pulled him back. An anxious shout echoed from the building up ahead. His eyes darted toward the source, and there she was, Emma, the heir of a powerful CEO. Stranded inches from the edge of the sidewalk in her wheelchair, her expression trapped between fear and disruption caused by her fancy yet daunting surroundings. This was a moment that held chaos and anxiety, as her friends clambered around her, shouting while their polished shoes struggled to grip the pavement. Jake's instinct kicked in. Heart racing, he slammed the brakes, tires screeching against the asphalt as he leapt from his truck, adrenaline pushing him toward the scene. He reached Emma just in time, wrapping his arms around her to steady her chair and prevent an imminent disaster. Their eyes connected, and in that fleeting second, Jake felt a spark, an undeniable connection that sent shockwaves through his core. She blinked up at him, confusion and gratitude flickering across her face. "Thank you. You saved me," she whispered, breaking the tension that enveloped them. But as the day's reality rushed back, Jake's chest constricted tighter. He didn't belong here. How could he? This was a world of polished appearances and high stakes, everything he feared. As the hum of voices resumed around them, judgment hung thick in the air. Whispered criticisms from Emma's friends stung at Jake's back like daggers, branding him a mere blue-collar distraction. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Days later, their paths crossed again, inevitably entwined in a world so foreign to Jake. Emma's laughter echoed in his ears, yet it was tainted by the pressure of her life, one governed by her father's expectations and rigid beliefs about social stature. Each moment away from his kids brought waves of guilt, but perhaps, he envisioned being that father who could offer them more, an example of how to fight through hardship. Yet with each heartbeat, insecurities clawed at his thoughts. What if he wasn't enough? As their connection deepened, Jake found himself confronting the glare of judgment from Emma's world. The tension escalated, suffocating him, as Emma's father escalated his disapproval into an ultimatum that rattled him to his core. Conform or suffer the consequences. Jake's muscles tensed, thoughts racing. If it came to choosing between love and loyalty, how would Emma choose? There they stood at the precipice of a decision that could tear them apart, each breath heavy with unspoken questions. Jake swallowed hard, preparing to voice an argument against the chains of privilege threatening to ensnare them both. The following days felt surreal, like an unending loop, each moment dragging him deeper into a world he couldn't fathom. Jake found himself caught between the raw struggles of his daily life and the glittering facade that Emma's world represented. Though the connection they formed was unexpected, it both thrilled and terrified him. He was nowhere near her level of sophistication, the disparity felt magnified every time he glimpsed the opulence surrounding her. Tension escalated as he faced Emma's father, a man whose authoritative presence loomed like a dark cloud. Conversations were laced with condescension, veiled threats wrapped in polite language. "You're not equipped to handle my daughter's needs," he'd say with a forced smile. That line jabbed at Jake, igniting a fire within him. He may not wear a suit and tie, but he was not weak. The sting of self-doubt persisted, yet a relentless urge to protect and uplift Emma bubbled beneath the surface. Each stolen moment they spent together felt joyous but fraught with undercurrents. Her laughter was music, but it carried a weight. "My father wants me to join the family business, but I dream of traveling, experiencing life outside these four walls." The vulnerability in Emma's confession hit him hard, sending tremors of recognition through his soul. He saw parallels in her struggles, mirroring his own in different forms. Jake's vulnerability blossomed too. Admitting to her that he feared being insufficient as a father, afraid he could never offer his children what they deserved, opened a doorway to self-reflection. He remembered the ambitious dreams of his youth, cloudy with the pressures he had faced since then. "What will I do if I fail?" he thought. Each intrusive thought attacked his resolve, while the desire to be better for his kids and Emma curdled into a motivational zeal. He dove into self-improvement. He chose to attend workshops at the local community college, late evenings weighed down by fatigue from work, but thriving on the challenge. The weathered texts on business strategies and personal development became his refuge. Despite the exhaustion that gnawed at him, Jake was determined to grasp the tools that could elevate his existence. When he reconnected with Emma, she could see the fire that ignited within him radiating from his eyes, contrasting the soot of self-doubt that usually shadowed him. "You're going for it." "I see that," she declared, her spirit brightening. Yet doubt still crept in. Was he genuinely developing into a man worthy of Emma's love? Or was he merely masking insecurities with newfound knowledge? The dangerous dance between progress and fear left him on shaky ground. The stakes had risen. The more he invested in himself, the greater the threat from Emma's father loomed. Having caught wind of Jake's ambitions, he directed his ire with sharpened daggers of disapproval. "You think you can rise to her level? You'll only disappoint her and yourself," he sneered, an unavoidable challenge that left Jake with no option but to confront his fears head-on. Clenching his fists, Jake realized it was now or never. The time had come to face not only the monster of privilege but also every insidious whisper of inadequacy festering within. Emma's expectations and his own desires collided like a storm. The fight for authenticity had begun. The road ahead felt perilously steep, but within him a will emerged more resilient than ever. Would he dare to blaze a path toward a life where their worlds could overlap, or would he succumb to the social barriers that threatened to keep them apart? The question burned in his mind as he steeled himself. The moment of confrontation approached, and every fiber of his being buzzed with anticipation. Jake felt the weight of expectation and scrutiny as he stepped into the conference room of the community college, a concrete reminder of how drastically his life had shifted. The tables were arranged in a semicircle, a few chairs filled with faces that shared a common goal. Each person was there to enhance their understanding of business management, but for Jake, it carried a deeper, more personal significance. He was not just seeking knowledge, he was strategizing a way to fortify his relationship with Emma and carve a better future for his children. Each session challenged Jake to wrestle with his ingrained belief systems. As the instructor delved into concepts of strategic planning and conflict resolution, Jake felt his pulse quicken. Vision and ambition rumbled within him, awakened by the realities he had previously glossed over. Yet, returning home each night, his resolve was tested by the cruel echo of Emma's father's words. "You'll only disappoint her." That mantra haunted him, creepily threading through his thoughts like static electricity. After several weeks of grappling with theories and frameworks, an idea began to crystallize. Jake realized he needed to approach his looming confrontation with Emma's father as he would a business presentation. He would construct a plan, one crafted from his daily experiences, the struggles he understood all too well, and the aspirations he held tightly for both his children and Emma. Determined to embody the competence he was learning, Jake took meticulous notes on each component of his strategy. He began to visualize negotiations, arguments, and how he would lay out his intentions clearly and confidently. He wanted to show Emma's father that he wasn't just some underqualified worker from a low-income neighborhood trying to court his daughter. Rather, he was someone who possessed resilience, determination, and a clear vision for his future. Days later, standing in front of the mirror, Jake rehearsed his pitch. Each word slipped from his mouth with growing assurance, but doubts pocked through the surface like bubbles about to burst. Was he crafting an impenetrable shield, or merely a facade that would crack under pressure? The thought rattled him, but it was time to confront the source of his anxiety. The day finally arrived, and as he pulled into the driveway of Emma's family mansion, anxiety gnawed at his insides. It was an exquisite structure, a monument to the very privilege he suddenly found himself fighting against. Jake's heart raced. Clenching the steering wheel, he wrestled with his emotions. He stepped out, squaring his shoulders as he approached the grand front door. It felt monumental, both a literal and metaphorical threshold. There was no turning back. He was here to advocate for himself and his aspirations and, most importantly, for Emily. The encounter would either fortify his standing or fully unravel the delicate thread connecting him to the life he yearned for. As he entered the immaculate foyer, Jake was met with Emma's father, whose imposing presence filled the space. Every instance of their previous encounters rehashed in his mind, but this time, Jake wasn't underestimating himself. "Mr. Harrington," Jake began, voice steady and eyes locked, "I'd like to talk about your daughter and my intentions concerning her future." The definitive moment had come. As he lay out his plan, the stakes were impossibly high, yet his conviction surged forth. Would Emma's father perceive his aspirations as an earnest pursuit for success, or would he see only the dense fog of inadequacy he so often wielded? As the tension thickened around them, Jake took a breath, aware that he had to answer not only for himself but for the love he was cultivating with Emma. With heart pounding within the curated silence of the opulent room, he braced himself for the response that would shape everything. Would it be an acceptance of courage, or another sting of condescension? Jake's breath hung heavy in the air, a tangible, electric tension radiating between him and Emma's father. The room felt both expansive and claustrophobic, as if it was swallowing the sound of his heartbeat. He straightened his posture, meeting the incredulous glare of Mr. Harrington with a steely calm he hoped would test his own resolve. It was time to turn the tide, to champion not just his love for Emma, but the best version of himself, a version capable of going toe-to-toe with the unyielding expectations of privilege. "Mr. Harrington," he began again, voice unwavering, "I respect your role as a father. Your desire to protect Emma is commendable. I'm not here to undermine that." Each sentence served to dismantle the fortress of judgment that loomed between them. "But I stand before you today with a plan not just for my life, but for the life I want to build with your daughter." Disappointment flickered across Mr. Harrington's sharp features. The man leaned back, crossing his arms, a gesture of imposing skepticism. "What plan could possibly convince me that you are worthy of my daughter?" His voice dripped with disbelief, each word a challenge, testing Jake's gravitas. Jake's instincts urged him to falter, to shrink back into the familiar pool of self-doubt. But he clung tightly to the framework he had drawn up in class, his own canvas of aspirations and deliberate strategies. "I understand you see me as nothing more than that." He gestured vaguely toward the opulent furnishings, contrasting with his own working-class background. "It's a barrier I accept, but allow me to explain how I plan to overcome it for Emma's sake." The tension persisted, yet this time, it felt different. Jake focused on articulating not just his ambitions, but the practical steps he was taking to fulfill them, continuing his studies, prioritizing his work ethic, and fostering a nurturing environment for his children. "I want them to see that hard work and tenacity matter. That integrity and love outweigh all the material wealth money can buy." As Jake mapped out his commitment to self-improvement and the future he envisioned, he saw a flicker of curiosity flicker in Mr. Harrington's eyes, though skepticism remained a steadfast fixture. He pressed on, undeterred. "I believe love can thrive amongst challenges. I'm fighting for a future where our families might not just coexist, but actually uplift one another. My past will not define that, and I will not let it define Emma's future." For a moment, silence enveloped them both. Jake felt the ambivalence of that silence, oscillating between fear and hope, as he gauged Mr. Harrington's reaction. It wasn't an outright acceptance, but the shift was palpable, a slight crack in the armor of expectation. He was beginning to see beneath the exterior a man swayed not just by privilege, but by the sincere investment in his daughter's happiness, but just as a glimmer of victory appeared on the horizon, Mr. Harrington interjected. "Talking is one thing, Jake. But can you truly deliver?" The weight of that question hung heavy, echoing in the empty spaces left by Jake's supposition that his plan could speak for itself. Jake wrestled with his thoughts, realizing this was about more than emotion, it was about commitment in a way he had never been pushed before. "I know I can, and I'm ready to prove it. But this isn't just about me winning you over, it's about understanding Emma. I love her, and I want to shine in her life." The resolve in his voice surprised Jake himself. For the first time, he could envision a future defined by his aspirations, rather than the judgment of others. He had taken a step forward, a critical moment of personal evolution, yet uncertainty loomed over the next challenge. Would Mr. Harrington accept that fighting for Emma meant fighting for himself, too? The very core of their future hung in the balance. The probability of acceptance felt tantalizingly close, yet still just out of reach. And as the silence morphed from tension into a proving ground, Jake braced himself for the next words from Emma's father. Would they signify a breakthrough or another trial? The moment of truth arrived. The air thickened, pregnant with the intensity of Mr. Harrington's inquiry. Jake's heart raced, yet clarity washed over him in an unexpected wave. He was not just defending his intentions, he was clarifying his vision, the genuine threads of his ambition weaving through the silence. This was his crossroads, a juncture where he dared to stand as a man not only in love but forging ahead with purpose. "I want you to know this isn't just about me," Jake asserted, his voice steadier now. "It's about Emma and the life we could build together. I have tangible goals, clear steps I'm taking to ensure stability. I'm currently focused on graduating and finding a job that allows me to provide for her and our future children." Jake sensed a flicker of something in Mr. Harrington's eyes, a flicker of realization. Perhaps he was beginning to see Jake not merely as an interloper in his daughter's life, but as someone striving for mutual growth. With each word, Jake dismantled the walls raised against him, brick by brick. The older man's demeanor softened, but then it shifted again, a fleeting shadow crossing his expression. "You speak of plans, but plans can crumble. What makes you think you can sustain this?" "People from your background, the past isn't my anchor, it's my springboard," Jake retorted, hitting back against the insinuation that his origins limited his future. "I refuse to be boxed in by expectations from the world. The struggles I've faced have forged resilience. I've learned the importance of adaptability and grit. I will cultivate that in my kids too." Mr. Harrington remained silent, the tension moving like a weighted blanket between them. Jake could feel the scrutiny weighing heavily on him, an invisible spotlight that invited self-doubt to creep back in. But he pressed on, the determined flame within him shining brightly. He was developing into a man capable of creating change, a husband and father who would be a protector and a provider. "I spent years waiting tables, studying late into the night after long shifts," Jake continued, summoning memories of exhaustion that felt strangely empowering now. "That grind taught me not only self-discipline, but the value of work. I want to share that understanding with Emma, show her what dedication looks like." Jake noticed Mr. Harrington's fingers uncrossing, a subtle but powerful signal. This man, who had so firmly opposed Jake's presence in Emma's life, seemed to be contemplating the merits of dedication and ambition. Perhaps he was seeing the flickers of potential in Jake's persistent drive. "Why am I still hesitant?" Jake mused internally, riddled with both hope and apprehension. The room now crackled with mutual tension, half from his own uncertainty and half from the weight of Mr. Harrington's decisions that stretched beyond their conversation. The architecture of his life was shifting with every word. "Yes, I'm different from what you dreamed for your daughter, but I'm done apologizing for who I am. I'm ready to hold my ground for the love I feel for Emma. If that means facing trials, so be it." A long pause ensued, filled with an evolving spectrum of emotions. Jake's commitment to his own growth resonated within him, a burgeoning self-confidence reshaping his identity. This was no longer just about winning Mr. Harrington's approval, this was about standing tall in his aspirations, enabling himself to embrace possibility. "Actually, Mr. Harrington finally broke the silence, his voice low but deliberate. It's not enough just to talk about love or potential. You need to prove you can endure more than just words. Jake's body tensed again, recognizing the challenge ahead. Endurance that meant commitment, sweat, and navigating real-world obstacles. Would actions speak louder than the vulnerability he had exposed? He felt the hunger within him rise, a hunger for acceptance, not just from Emma's father but from himself. The road ahead twisted ominously into uncertainty. How would he prove his worth? What trials awaited him as he stepped beyond this pivotal threshold? He had begun dismantling barriers, yet something larger loomed. The question remained, could he actualize his vision, or would the obstacles suffocate his aspirations? And just as Jake prepared for whatever challenge lay ahead, he couldn't shake the feeling that a new trial was rapidly approaching, one that would test every fiber of his resolve. Would Emma's father finally see him as a worthy ally, or would Jake be left battling not only for Emma but for his very essence? The silence between them hung heavy, a reminder that words held weight, but actions held consequence. Jake leaned back slightly, breathing deeply as he waded through a sea of possibilities. The reality of Mr. Harrington's challenge loomed large: proof, endurance, tangible demonstrations of his commitment. He needed a plan. His mind raced, ticking through the steps he could take. He would need to find a job, secure his financial future, all while supporting Emma in every possible way. It felt like a lot to shoulder, but Jake had never backed down from a challenge before. Each obstacle was just another milestone on a path he was determined to forge. Stepping outside the intensity of the confrontation, he took a moment to collect himself. Jake remained seated, directing his focus inward, analyzing all he had learned in the past few years about perseverance. His past experiences were not merely tools for survival, they were armor that he could use to shield him from doubt. Realizing he had a whole life to build, he resolved to embrace the next chapter. He thought about the local business fair coming up, a perfect opportunity to network and potentially land a job. This was his moment to show commitment not only to Mr. Harrington but to himself. He could craft a narrative around his journey, a story infused with hard work, dedication, and ultimately, triumph. But even as he plotted his course, a tug of anxiety tinged his excitement. What if he failed? Past hurt echoed in the back of his mind, whispering doubts that, instead of paralyzing him, he had to transform into fuel for his ambition. He wouldn't become a statistic, he would be a testament to what resilience could achieve. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration ignited within him. He wouldn't just seek a job, he would build connections that could elevate him beyond the mundane. He envisioned reaching out to local entrepreneurs and mentors, absorbing their insights, showcasing his determination and skills. He pictured himself walking through the fair, exchanging business cards with future allies, all while maintaining the unwavering presence he hoped to project to Mr. Harrington. Yet, the confrontation rattled back to the forefront. The dynamic with Emma's father had shifted, ever so slightly. Had he earned even a fraction of Mr. Harrington's respect? He understood that respect could not be faked, it had to be earned over time through unwavering commitment and results. Jake's thoughts turned to Emma. The way her laughter filled the room and how she brought such warmth into his life inspired him every day. He envisioned their future, one they could construct together if only he could break through this initial barrier. Just then, a notification buzzed on his phone, pulling him from his reverie. It was a message from Emma. She wanted to meet him later at the cafe. A rush of energy coursed through him. This was his chance. He could share his plans, explain how far he was willing to go to make their lives better. Perhaps he could get her insights, collaborative ideas on how they could tackle challenges together. A surge of determination enveloped him as he prepared to gather his thoughts and set a course of action. He knew that this encounter with Emma wouldn't just be a conversation, it would be the foundation for their shared future. But lingering in the air was still Mr. Harrington's challenge. How would he prove his worth was more than just words? As Jake left Mr. Harrington's office, a new sense of purpose propelled him forward, yet that initial fear clung to him, reminding him that the real test was still to come. Tonight would be pivotal. Would Emma stand with him, believing in their shared dream despite the looming shadows of doubt? The path was twisted with uncertainty, but that very uncertainty ignited an unwavering resolve deep within him. Perhaps together, they would illuminate the hidden strengths waiting to be discovered. And as he anticipated their meeting, he couldn't shake the feeling that a larger trial was approaching, not only to prove himself to Mr. Harrington but to confront doubt itself, each moment bringing him closer to defining who he truly was. Would tonight be the first step toward an unbreakable bond, or would the walls that separated him from that future continue to rise? As Jake approached the cafe, the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around him like an embrace, soothing some of the anxious energy coursing through his veins. He spotted Emma sitting at their usual corner table, her expressive eyes scanning the menu. The sight of her instantly rekindled his determination. Today was not just about presenting his plans, it was about weaving their dreams together, transforming two individual aspirations into something greater. Jake slid into the chair across from her, heart racing but focused. Her polite smile relaxed his tension just enough for a brief moment before the weight of the circumstances brought it rushing back. He wanted to talk about the future but found himself caught up in the small niceties of their present. His mind raced as he tried to determine how to articulate the challenges he faced. "Hey, sorry I'm a bit late," he offered, forcing a casual tone as he took a moment to absorb her presence. "No worries, just trying to decide between the cappuccino or the mocha." Emma's playful grin ignited a flicker of something brighter within him. "I think I'd go for the mocha," Jake suggested, allowing himself a moment of levity before diving into his agenda. As they placed their orders, Jake's heart pounded at the thought of what he was about to share. He had already envisioned this conversation countless times in his mind, yet the reality of presenting it felt daunting. What if she didn't see the weight of his concerns? What if she couldn't stay beside him through the uncertainty? Once their drinks arrived, he took a steadying breath. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about everything about us," he began, choosing his words carefully. She leaned in, curiosity etched on her face, encouraging him further. "What's on your mind?" "I know I need to prove myself. Mr. Harrington challenged me, and it hit home," Jake confessed, the urgency of his voice thickening. "I won't just search for a job, I want to build something for the future, a life for both of us. I need support, and your insights matter more than anything." Her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and Jake wondered if he had overwhelmed her. But to his surprise, she didn't shy away from the ambition he displayed. "I believe in you, Jake. What do you have in mind?" He was reminded of the local business fair, its potential shimmering like a beacon ahead of him. "Networking, building connections, finding the right opportunity. This isn't just about employment for me. It's about finding my place in this community and proving myself to your father." Her gaze softened, and a thoughtful silence settled between them. In that moment, he felt the unspoken bond between them grow stronger, as if they were two threads combining to form something durable. "What if we went together?" Emma suggested suddenly, her eyes bright with excitement. Jake's breath caught, realizing the depth of her offer. "You'd want to?" "Of course. I'm proud of you, and I want to help," she replied firmly. Her conviction reverberated through him, transforming his apprehension into renewed vigor. The idea of collaborating rather than facing the trials alone was both liberating and inspiring. "I want us to climb this mountain together," he urged, feeling the true weight of her support. As their conversation continued, they exchanged ideas about potential connections and strategies, allowing hope to flourish between them. An essential revelation had taken place, a partnership born not only from love but from mutual aspiration, yet, beneath that hope languished the remnants of doubt, echoing Mr. Harrington's piercing challenge. Could Jake genuinely prove himself, not just to Mr. Harrington, but to Emma and himself? With that thought hovering in his mind, a new uncertainty unfurled. Would their shared dreams withstand the inevitable obstacles that lay ahead? The cafe's clatter around them faded into a dull hum as Jake contemplated their future, now intertwined yet precarious. The stakes had shifted. It was no longer just about him, their aspirations were now collectively at play. As he looked into Emma's eyes, a question loomed larger than before: what price would he pay to protect and nurture what they had built together? And was he truly ready to confront the reality of change before them? The answers awaited, shrouded in ambiguity as they ventured deeper into uncharted territory. The following days after their conversation were a mixture of anticipation and anxiety for Jake. He immersed himself in research, preparing for the upcoming fair while intertwining Emma's ideas into his strategy. Each evening, they met to brainstorm, their synergy blossoming as they spent more late nights in the cafe, their laughter mingling with anxious conversations about the future. With each brainstorming session, Jake unearthed something within himself, an unyielding determination to step up his game. He began to visualize not just the business idea but the life they would build together, the house, the laughter, the shared moments that would define them. Yet, as the day of the fair approached, inner conflict brewed. Was he truly ready for this leap, and what if the weight of his ambition drew them apart rather than binding them closer? On the eve of the fair, he lay awake, mind racing with doubts. Was he equipped to face Mr. Harrington's scrutiny? Would he falter under the pressure of demonstrating his worth? He could see it all too clearly, his father-in-law's skeptical gaze, Emma's supportive smile slowly waning if he stumbled. He recognized a pattern in his life, moments of clarity would dim against the backdrop of self-doubt. Determined to confront this, he fixed his mind on the singular goal that lingered over him. He would not let fear control his destiny. Morning arrived, bringing with it a crisp resolve. Dressed in his newfound business attire, Jake stared at his reflection, searching for the confidence that seemed elusive. But beneath the facade of calmness stood a swirling tempest of anxiety. He decided to lean into that feeling instead of fleeing from it, recognizing that growth often lurked on the other side of discomfort. Arriving at the fair, Jake was struck by the chaotic energy that buzzed throughout the venue, a frenzied dance of potential opportunity and impending failure. Everything felt magnified: the chatter of competitors, the palpable anticipation of hopeful entrepreneurs, and the weight of expectations heavily pressed against his chest. He clutched a file filled with notes tightly, his mind teetering between excitement and dread. It was time to execute his plans, but could he overcome the instinct to retreat? Emma stood beside him, her enthusiasm a steady light amidst the swirling uncertainty. "You're going to do great," she encouraged, the warmth of her presence easing some tension. For a moment, Jake locked eyes with her, and the apprehension began to fade. Their partnership was not solely about ambition, it was also about mutual strength, grounded in shared values and unwavering support. As they maneuvered through the thrumming crowd, they explored each booth, immersing themselves in conversations with other entrepreneurs. Jake felt a twist of jealousy as he watched other confident businesspeople pitch their ideas, effortlessly navigating interactions. He grappled with a flicker of inadequacy. But the thought of Emma's approval lifted his spirit. This was about growth, not comparison. Then, unexpectedly, a situation leaped out at him. A speaker panel began at the back of the room, featuring none other than Mr. Harrington. The tremor of recognition sent electricity through Jake. A knot formed in his stomach. This was the moment he had been avoiding. He had to speak to Harrington, not just as a dim employee from his past but as a determined man willing to fight for what he believed in. "Let us go," Jake spoke, his voice steadier than he felt. Emma nodded, her unwavering support fortifying his resolve as they stepped toward the panel. The moment of truth loomed ahead of him, and Jake felt the familiar churn of doubt wash over him. Here was the man whose challenge had sparked this entire journey, but also a man who could easily dismantle everything he worked for if he stumbled. Would he rise to meet this confrontation, or would he falter before the ambitions they had built? With each step toward the panel, Jake absorbed the weight of expectations and prepared to face the harsh scrutiny of the world around him, wrestling with a daunting question of his own: could he truly capture not just his own dreams but also those intertwined with Emma's? As they approached, he felt a surge of adrenaline. The moment had finally arrived. Jake's pulse quickened as he neared the panel, the thrumming rhythm of his heart matching the excitement surrounding him. It was time to confront Mr. Harrington, the very thorn in his side that had set this journey in motion. The warmth of Emma's hand in his offered reassurance, grounding him amid the swelling tide of anxiety. But as they reached the periphery of the crowd, the moment felt surreal. He could see Harrington's authoritative figure commanding attention, and insecurity crept back into his thoughts. "Are you really ready for this?" whispered the voice of doubt, a faint echo in the corner of his mind. Absolutely, he murmured to himself, forcing an air of confidence that belied the turmoil twisting in his stomach. He had come too far to back down now. As he and Emma settled in near the front, he listened intently to Harrington's insights, each word sharpening Jake's focus. Every anecdote of success and failure shared by the seasoned entrepreneur reverberated within him, urging him forward. There was a mounting urgency to his situation. The longer he lingered in the periphery, the harder it became to resist the urge to retreat. Yet, conversing with Emma, he absorbed each lesson, reminding himself of their joint aspirations and dreams. Rediscovery pulsated within him. This was not merely a face-off with a former boss. This was a pivotal moment not just for Jake but for Emma's vision. Their future hung in the balance, and he had to seize the opportunity. As the discussion wound down, Jake sensed the moment of engagement fluttering closer. Harrington prepared to field questions, and a part of Jake pounced on the chance before him. Now or never, he thought, channeling all the lessons he had gathered into a singular determination. He glanced at Emma, her eyes wide with anticipation, unspoken faith radiating from her. With her support propelling him, Jake stood tall, ready to push through the wall of doubt. "Mr. Harrington," he called, his voice steadying as he claimed the floor. The crowd's eyes shifted towards him, a spotlight illuminating his presence. "I'm Jake, and I work on projects that merge sustainability with technology." He paused, gauging the curiosity of the room before continuing. "The impact on our community is something I want to expand on, but I need to ask, what is the best way to nurture a vision in a landscape pulsing with established giants?" The question hung in the air, a tangible mix of vulnerability and ambition. All eyes were on him, and Jake could feel Harrington's intense gaze searching for authenticity. "Innovation isn't just about the idea, it's about how you deliver it, why it matters," Harrington answered, his tone both instructive and somewhat imposing. "You must have an anchor, a reason to drive things forward. And that has to resonate with your audience." As the word settled, Jake felt an inward shift, a revelation igniting like a spark of clarity. It wasn't just about selling ideas, it was about connecting on deeper emotional levels, bridging the gap between aspirations and concrete action. Realizing this unlocked something primal within him, invigorating his resolve. But what do you do when that anchor is uncertain? Jake pressed, his soul bearing itself through the question, drawing from the depths of his personal struggle. Invitation lingered in his gaze, even as he hesitated to confront honesty about his own fears. How do you ensure that your ambitions don't strip away the very things that matter? Harrington's expression shifted, something akin to respect gleamed in his eyes. That's the challenge, isn't it? Balancing ambition with your core values. Don't lose sight of what originally lit that fire. As the panel discussion unfolded, Jake's confidence transformed, lighting the path ahead. For the first time, he could see the threads of his journey weaving together, not as a series of isolated struggles but as a tapestry of growth and purpose, his fears of inadequacy fading with every exchange, but the weight of addressing Harrington hadn't lifted completely. Instead, it had morphed into a visceral challenge. The startup world could be brutal. However, Jake recognized that each doubt he confronted was an opportunity to refine his vision, to solidify not just his business idea but also his identity as an emerging leader. As the panel concluded, his heart raced with the knowledge of what lay ahead. Recognizing the delicate balance of fear and courage, he turned to Emma, the electric surge of uncertainty giving way to deeper conviction. Could their partnership withstand the trials that awaited, or would ambition put a strain on their dreams? With fresh determination ignited, Jake whispered to Emma, "We need to delve deeper." This was only the beginning, and the opportunity they had together was ripe for discovery. Yet, beyond the fair, challenges loomed. Would they both rise to meet them, or would the pressure of ambition drive a wedge between their shared dreams? The stakes had never been higher, and Jake knew the true tests of their partnership were about to begin. Jake stood triumphant in the middle of the conference room, heart thrumming like a drum, having just borrowed courage from every moment of self-doubt he had faced. The encounter with Mr. Harrington had shifted. The walls of judgment were no longer immovable, they had begun to crumble under the weight of his conviction. Your daughter's happiness is my utmost priority, Jake had declared, his voice unyielding. I want to show her what I can build not just for myself, but for us. The words now resonated through his mind, a powerful mantra that signified his unwavering resolve. Weeks had passed since that pivotal day, and Jake fully immersed himself in the life he was forging. He transformed the lessons from the business fair into actionable goals, attending meetings with a steadfast focus and a sharpened drive. He was not just a worker, he was becoming an architect of his destiny. His first accomplishment came when he secured an internship at a local startup focusing on sustainable technology. The position ignited a fire in him, and he exploded with fresh ideas. His boss, recognizing Jake's dedication and raw intelligence, elevated him to handle client engagements. You've got a knack for this, his supervisor remarked one afternoon, handing him responsibility that felt like a crown. What was once a frayed relationship with Emma's father began to evolve. Jake routinely kept Mr. Harrington updated on his professional growth, outlining each step he was taking to provide both for his family and his burgeoning connection with Emma. Their interactions became less icy and more interspersed with respect. For the first time, Jake observed a flicker of acknowledgement in Mr. Harrington's demeanor. A month later, Jake was invited to a community development roundtable, where he was to present a business model blending technology and environmental sustainability. The night before, nerves grazed at his mind, but Emma, cheering him on, bolstered his confidence. You've built this, Jake. Own it. Show them you're showing up for everyone, she whispered, her faith illuminating the weighty outlook he had often turned to dread. Standing at the front of the room, Jake felt every gaze settling on him. He began to speak not as the insecure father prioritizing mere survival, but as a man built from dreams transformed into planning. He shared his vision, fueled by newfound knowledge and passion, while concrete statistics underscored every point, showing not just ambition, but evidence of growth. The applause that followed felt like the thunderclaps of validating transformation. Jake was no longer merely a blue-collar worker. He was recognized as a visionary thinker committed to meaningful change. And even as the room erupted into conversation, he noticed Mr. Harrington nodding, the flicker of respect now glowing into a full flame. Days turned into weeks, and as Jake navigated through networking events alongside Emma, hand in hand, their partnership flourished. They strategized with an astute understanding that their dreams needed nurturing, resilience, and action. Together, they tackled challenges, attended seminars, and connected with mentors, all while cultivating a bond that ran deeper than infatuation. It was forged from shared visions. And the final culmination of his journey, Jake held an invitation to display their next project at a grant competition aimed at promoting sustainable innovations. The day before the event, remembering the struggles and criticisms, he met with Emma to rehearse. Imagine us winning, he proposed, excitement bubbling in his chest. We'd launch something transformative for our community. In that moment, beneath the soft glow of the cafe lights, Jake felt the weight of all his fears lifted. This was not merely about him proving his worth to Mr. Harrington, this was about demonstrating their joint strength, a test of faith in their partnership and the dreams they shared. On the day of the pitch, Jake's palms were clammy, but he held his head high. As he articulated their vision to a panel of judges, Jake's heart overflowed with pride, not just for his achievement, but for the journey that led him here. Emma's presence, unwavering and steadfast, drove him forward. Their eyes connected as she beamed. It was clear she recognized his growth as much as he acknowledged hers. Finally, as applause erupted after their presentation, Jake discovered something phenomenal. He no longer craved validation from Mr. Harrington or anyone else. He had forged a path through vulnerability, determination, and love. As the judges announced Jake and Emma's project as a competition winner, his stride transformed into a confident leap toward a future they would construct together. In that moment, Jake stood tall not merely as a victor in a competition, but as a father, a partner, and a man who had conquered doubts, proving that hard work and resilience could bridge even the deepest divides. The reality around him now felt vibrant and full. Jake had achieved personal and professional growth that surpassed even his ambitions, shedding the weight of self-doubt. He had built something rich and promising from the ground up, reflecting authentic fulfillment. their journey had just begun. A life thick with potential lay ahead, and Jake understood one definitive truth: he was ready. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now, don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories recognize the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.